Welcome back to our channel, where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today we bring you some news. Royal in shock. King Charles accuses Camilla of stealing his priceless jewels. An intimate source claims that King Charles 75 has identified Camilla as the purported thief of the king's precious jewels. Significant tension and concealment prevailed inside the confines of Windsor. This film will reveal the circumstances surrounding Camilla and the reasons for King Charles's heightened tensions. In the perception of the British populace, Buckingham Palace epitomizes a distinctive emblem of continuity history and a lifestyle that prioritizes moderation. It is by design and through centuries of experience a locale where private and public responsibilities are meticulously balanced and where the mechanisms of monarchy operate under regulations that aim to minimize improvisation and present a cohesive face to the public. Consequently, when narratives emerge indicating a significant disruption in that well-maintained order, it is both startling and significant to the public. Consequently, recent rumors of a significant and very intimate altercation between King Charles III and Queen Camilla have garnered considerable attention. Allegations from unidentified individuals disseminated via various media outlets assert that a dispute inside the royal household escalated into a public confrontation with the Queen accused of stealing a priceless piece of royal jewels. The allegations have reignited concerns about the functioning of the modern monarchy, the evolving role of the Queen, and the interpersonal dynamics crucial to the crown. Given that Buckingham Palace has not officially addressed these allegations, they warrant careful examination due to their immediate significance and their implications regarding the existing tensions between personal relationships and institutional requirements inherent in constitutional monarchy. The accounts of the events concur that the morning started like any other day at the palace but swiftly transformed into a tableau of concern. Individuals said that the quotidian cadence of domestic life, characterized by a structured sequence of arrivals, gatherings, official responsibilities, and personal routines, was disrupted by the abrupt emergence of raised voices from the private royal chambers. In an environment where discretion and understated behavior are customary, this circumstance is inherently incongruous. Witnesses in these accounts said that staff members were momentarily paralyzed, wondering whether to intervene or adhere to the established norm of refraining from engaging in the private affairs of the royal couple. Even the royal guards, often characterized by their stoicism and discipline, were reportedly exceptionally aware of their surroundings. Their posture and behavior exhibited remarkable strain for a brief while. It is crucial to examine the staff's reactions in these narratives since they illuminate the internal culture of the family, which is vital for its operational efficacy. A hierarchy of authority and a set of regulations must be adhered to by palace staff, ranging from valets and footmen to top advisors, to ensure the safety of the monarch and his family from quotidian issues. Discretion is a professional virtue. An aspect of professional training involves discerning when to intervene and when to refrain. When norms are violated unexpectedly, such as by shouting in private spaces or making accusations beyond a private threshold, the staff's standard procedures become ambiguous. Who does door-to-door visits in the apartments? Who is willing to mediate? Who retains evidence? These are pragmatic issues related to institutions, and the narratives indicate that for a while standard procedures were suspended due to the emotional nature of the event. An incident that many attribute to King Charles is central to these narratives. Individuals who reported hearing him said that the tone of his voice conveyed a blend of deep despair and extreme fury. He was expected to convey two distinct parts. On one level, it pertained to his perception of Queen Camilla's increasingly autonomous public actions, decisions, and remarks that were not quite synchronized with the king's private office, and in certain instances contravened established palace protocol. The outburst stemmed from the loss of a significant signet ring. This band was seen as emotionally significant to the king and a representation of his enduring commitment to certain dynastic symbols. The narratives indicate that the amalgamation of personal anguish from the loss of an inheritance and broader institutional concerns stemming from unilateral actions culminated in a highly charged meeting. Observers noted that the issue intensified as it became evident that the king's accusations were directed not at staff advisors or external performers, but at his wife, the queen. For an institution reliant on the concept of marital union for legitimacy, the notion of a rift between the sovereign and the consort is significantly pertinent. The object central to the dispute is a signet ring with an extensive history and a significant personal connection with King Charles. This is not only a piece of jewelry. A signet ring is a finger ring with an engraved or raised emblem used to imprint a seal in wax for the purpose of verifying identity. It serves as an effective instrument for identification and a potent emblem of status. The ring detailed in these accounts is composed of 18-karat Welsh gold and features the heraldic emblem typically linked to the Prince of Wales. 3 ostrich feathers emerging from a coronet accompanied by a ribbon inscribed with Ich dien, commonly interpreted as I serve. This ring gained public attention in the mid-1970s when the then Prince of Wales donned it on his little finger frequently over his wedding band. Based on the available descriptions, it has consistently been a component of his public image for several years. The signet's physical attributes are significant for 2 reasons. They enhance its distinctiveness and facilitate identification. Welsh gold, a metal extracted in limited quantities and only used by the heir in certain customs, with a unique and verifiable origins. The heraldic of the Prince of Wales is readily identifiable. This degree of exposure enhances the ring's symbolic significance. In a culture that meticulously observes symbols repeatedly encountered, elements become into artifacts within the narrative of public existence. This is due to their frequent visibility, photographic representation, and extensive discussion. The ring's persistent appearance in images of the young prince and in formal portraits associates it with a particular life story. This link illustrates why its anticipated removal may elicit an emotion that beyond the ring's financial value. This signet ring has significant importance. Louis Mountbatten, 1st Earl Mountbatten of Burma, reportedly gifted it to Charles. Mountbatten had a significant influence throughout Charles's childhood, and the young prince shared a strong relationship with him. The association with Mountbatten imparts a distinctive emotional significance to the object, acting as a tangible tie to a valued relationship and the pivotal events that shaped the king's character and sense of duty. Mountbatten's guidance of the young prince, his engagement in naval and royal affairs, and the tragic circumstances surrounding his death in 1979 contributed to a narrative of loss and loyalty often cited by royal observers. An object linked to that past has significant emotional weight. The ring symbolizes an extensive association with the title and role of Prince of Wales, the longest in contemporary British history. This association signifies the preparation, continuity, and anticipations associated with ascending to the title of Prince of Wales. The ring's composition of Welsh gold enhances its symbolic significance by establishing a tangible connection to the principality traditionally associated with the heir presumptive. This amalgamation of personal recollection, geographical meaning, and dynasty perpetuation makes the ring more than just a personal artifact. It is a portable symbol of identity, used in public ceremonies, photographs, and informal gestures. To fully understand why the alleged loss of such an object would elicit significant worry, one must recognize the convergence of personal passion and social importance that artifacts of royal heritage often represent. Royal jewels and insignia serve as both adornments and portable embodiments of an institution's legacy. They use visual clues to link a living individual to a narrative that transcends their biography and delves into their familial background. Individuals may recognize and associate with a royal figure by seeing a ring that the prince has worn publicly for decades, such in official photographs at investitures or at ceremonial occasions. Removing or losing an item of this kind is not only a financial loss. It may also sever the nexus of associations linking an individual to a title and a memory to a right. The convergence of these human and institutional causes renders the ring's alleged disappearance relevant beyond mere physicality. Misplacing a commonplace object may be regrettable, but the loss of a cherished antique imbued with significant meaning might adversely affect both continuity and personal recollection. The narratives emphasize that the disappearance of such a distinctive and historically important artifact from the secure environment of Buckingham Palace would likely prompt a discreet but thorough inquiry. According to the sources, when the inquiry allegedly uncovered indications implicating Queen Camilla, the stakes escalated from security concerns to issues of personal trust. The assertion that the Queen had in some manner acquired or possessed the ring transformed the issue from a mere loss of property to a rupture in the royal partnership. To comprehend the alleged tension, it is essential to examine the evolution of Queen Camilla's public role since her formal integration into the royal family via marriage. Her journey has been a gradual reintegration and transformation of people's perceptions of her. Upon her marriage to the then Prince of Wales in 2005, the palace announced that she will assume the title of Princess Consort upon Charles's ascension to the throne. This was executed to prevent disturbing the public, which remained sensitive about the challenging circumstances preceding the conclusion of the king's first marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales. The decision to designate Camilla as Princess Consort was a compromise between traditional expectations and public desire. The deceased monarch's formal participation subsequently complicated the matter of Camilla's title. In her Platinum Jubilee address in February 2022, commemorating her extensive reign, the late Queen Elizabeth II purportedly expressed her sincere wish for Camilla to be acknowledged as Queen Consort upon her ascension to the throne. Many individuals saw the public expression of intent as a definitive and formal affirmation of Camilla's forthcoming role, serving as a signal to facilitate the transition during a sensitive period in the Constitution. At that time, many regarded the remark as the definitive statement on a contentious issue, given its origin from the most esteemed member of the royal family and its significant moral authority. Upon ascending to the throne, Charles first adopted the formal title Her Majesty the Queen Consort, consistent with established protocols. However, Camilla's public presentation and the language used in official communications evolved over time. Prior to the coronation in May 2023, official documents including entries on the royal website and event invitations were amended to eliminate the term consort, designating her solely as Her Majesty the Queen. Traditionally, the spouse of a reigning king is referred to as Queen Consort, and in social contexts she is frequently addressed as Queen. However, the omission of consort from the formal title was broadly interpreted as a calculated and public declaration of an enhanced status, clarifying Camilla's position within the institutional hierarchy. This official change of title was not only a matter of semantics. Monarchical titles include regulations, obligations, and emblematic significance. Altering the official designation of a notable royal individual influences external perceptions of the royal family, as well as internal dynamics inside the palace. Reports accompanying the title change indicated that the decision had caused discomfort among some members of the royal family. King Charles was conflicted between honoring his mother's publicly expressed wishes and wanting to facilitate his wife's acceptance by the populace. The news reports indicated that the king had ultimately acquiesced to the alteration despite his reluctance. If this is accurate, it illustrates the difficulty he has in reconciling his responsibilities as a family member with those of a constitutional king. The sequence of events illustrates how alterations in symbolic representation, such as the selection of a consort, may generate conflicts among the imperatives of consistency, reverence for history, and the demands of modern public relations. The narratives also discuss the expansion of Queen Camilla's influence inside the royal family. This expansion beyond her attendance at ceremonies and included her increased involvement in decisions typically reserved for the king's private office. The investigations indicate that this influence manifested in decisions that altered the sovereign's public agenda, including the cancellation and postponement of events. Staff members believed these instances reflected Camilla using her judgment without adhering to the standard consultation protocols. In palace governance, managing a sovereign's public itinerary is a nuanced and meticulously overseen task that involves several officials, external entities, and bilateral agreements. Interventions that circumvent established protocols are likely to create complications not just due to logistical disruptions, but also because they signify a shift in authority and power dynamics. Providing a general overview of decision-making processes inside a monarch's household is beneficial for comprehending the stakes involved. The monarch's private secretary, often the highest-ranking operational officer in the household, serves as the primary liaison between the sovereign and the government advisors and the broader institution. The Lord Chamberlain, the Master of the Home, and the designated communications directors are significant figures responsible for various tasks in organizing ceremonies, managing the home, and formulating media strategies. These offices have evolved throughout time to reconcile the sovereign's personal preferences with the need of managing the institution's public responsibilities transparently. When a consort begins to assume direct decision-making roles formerly held by specific offices, individuals start to question accountability, authority, and the extent of acceptable informal influence. These challenges are often addressed by groups of trusted advisors rather than established conventions, rendering them susceptible to friction stemming from perception. One specific move noted in these narratives was the Queen's readiness to assert her authority in determining if engagements aligned with her strategic vision for the monarchy. A phrase attributed to her in royal circles, "The Queen knows best," was presented as evidence of her belief that her judgment should be paramount. Certain palace employees saw this position as indicative of the consort's increasing assertiveness and willingness to alter the established agenda. For others, it represented an unsettling overextension that may obscure the distinction between the monarch's authority and the auxiliary function often assumed by the monarch's consort. Reports indicate that a sensitive incident occurred when the Queen allegedly agreed to a television interview without the king's awareness or formal authorization. The stories indicate that the problem was not alone her public speaking, but also her disclosure of sensitive facts about strategic discussions that the king believed were to remain undisclosed. In a constitutional monarchy, discretion and meticulous information management are essential. Private discussions among senior royal family members and their advisors are typically confined to a limited circle due to the potential impact of premature or unmediated disclosure on governmental relations, public expectations, and internal trust. For a sovereign whose authority encompasses symbolic power and whose legitimacy often relies on perceived stability, publicizing private conversations may be significantly detrimental. Sources said that Camilla publicly commented on strategic discussions with the king. They said that this was not only a procedural error, but also a human violation that undermined mutual confidence. Comprehension of the subject necessitates consideration of the extensive influence of history. Queen Camilla has contended with a legacy intimately associated with the tale of Charles's first marriage and its highly publicized dissolution. For several individuals in the UK and beyond, Camilla is associated with the poignant period when Diana, Princess of Wales, emerged as an international icon with a substantial following and significant emotional resonance. Diana's portrayal as the people's princess, rooted in her perceived empathy, accessibility, and emotional authenticity, continues to influence public perception of her and serves as a benchmark for comparisons between Charles and Camilla. The intensive media scrutiny and sometimes hostile public sentiment directed against Camilla during the period of substantial press focus on her and Charles undoubtedly resulted in lasting personal and reputational consequences. These historical elements are inextricably linked to current events. The persistent public sentiment on Diana's legacy, the unresolved emotions surrounding historical grievances, and the arduous task of rehabilitating a reputation contribute to the pressure on a queen seeking to reinvent herself. The interplay of personal memory, public sentiment, and constitutional symbolism makes Camilla's ascension to the throne as queen notably delicate. For some individuals with a personal or ethical attachment to Diana's legacy, Camilla's ascension to prominence is emotionally significant. For others, Camilla's extensive public service and the passage of time have rendered the issue less definitive. Rumors suggest that emotional issues persist inside the marriage. There are assertions that Camilla believed Charles inadequately protected her in the past, as well as suggestions that Charles harbors remorse or unresolved regrets over prior events. The presence of these emotional remnants would significantly complicate the management of an already challenging institutional reform. The narratives of the conflict center on a pivotal time when the aforementioned tensions escalated to their zenith. Insiders report that the morning after the aired interview was replete with both optimism and anxiety. Reports indicated that the Queen had not been present at the palace the previous night, and her fleeting absence exacerbated the King's anxiety upon hearing her public statements. The King reportedly attempted to contact her many times. Initially met with silence, his attempts provoked increasing distress, prompting observers to see him pacing the rooms in evident torment. Upon her return the next morning, accounts indicate she was composed and resolute. She is said to have traversed the palace without engaging with staff, exuding an aura of both aloofness and authority. These accounts indicate that the altercation escalated rapidly and aggressively. Reports indicate that the King informed the Queen that she was prioritizing her own ambitions above the monarchy and acting in ways detrimental to the institution's cohesion. The discourse rapidly transitioned from professional critique to fundamental issues of loyalty and dedication. At this moment, the narratives assert that the King made the peculiar allegation that the Queen was responsible for the disappearance of his signet ring. "You are the individual who purloined the royal jewels. You appropriated my ring," he is said to have stated. If this is accurate, it transforms the dispute from a procedural disagreement to an issue of personal property and alleged misconduct. The accounts of the Queen's reaction did not align with a narrative of regret or astonishment. Rather, she is said to have remained composed and stated that she acted according to her convictions. The assertion, "What belongs to the King is mine," repeatedly articulated by her throughout the debate, is somewhat difficult to comprehend. This may be seen as a declaration of collaboration, an effort to transform symbols of authority from individual ownership to collective sharing. Another perspective on the speech is as a proclamation of appropriation, signifying a shift in boundaries that the King could not tolerate. The presentation of the ring in the reports, apparently crafted from the Queen's purse and deliberately placed between them, was a demonstration of the irrevocable transformation of their relationship. The King's declaration, "You're done," serves as a conclusive cry expressing not just rage but also the notion that a foundational trust has been irreparably broken. We must use caution while attempting to comprehend these events. The assertions circulating originate from unidentified sources and remain unverified by the palace, which has refrained from commenting on them. The themes in the narrative issues of trust, the distribution of authority within the monarchy, the management of symbols, and the influence of personal history on public office remain relevant in contemporary royal life. The alleged seizure of the ring, whether as an act of solidarity, provocation, or misinterpretation, functions in these tales as a symbol around which more substantial conflicts are organized. Certain sources suggest that for Camilla, possessing the ring might symbolize absolute equality within both the marriage and the monarchy. Camilla may have seen that possessing an item intimately associated with the king's identity was a means of fostering acceptance and unity among individuals. For Charles, the ring symbolized a profound personal link to his past and educators, and appropriating it seemed similar to rejecting those memories rather than embracing them. These events generate several unresolved questions. What institutional mechanisms exist for the Queen to have more influence in the palace's decision-making processes? In what manner can traditional concepts of consortship accommodate a consort desiring to assume a more proactive and directive role? At what point does discretion give way to disclosure, and what constitutes an actionable breach of confidentiality under the specific constitutional framework governing the British monarchy? Inquiries about the ramifications are as significant. If the gap described in these charges is as grave as some assert, what implications may it have for the royals' capacity to fulfill their duties? The monarchy's capacity to exhibit a cohesive stance has traditionally served as a gauge of its strength. Visible discord among its members may undermine the perception of continuity and moral authority that the institution seeks to project. There are significant impacts on culture and politics. The British monarchy exists in an era when media influence is unprecedented. Social media is ubiquitous, and the populace is more diverse and inclined to scrutinize inherited privilege. The monarchy's reputation relies not just on the conduct of each royal, but also on their ability to manage rapidly and unpredictably disseminated narratives. A private marital issue that becomes public is not only a cause of personal embarrassment, it may also act as a barometer for the institution's ability to adapt to changing norms of transparency, accountability, and representational integrity. From a governance perspective, Buckingham Palace's typical reticence about speculative rumors is a standard strategy aimed at averting the proliferation of unfounded claims. However, silence incurs its own expenses. In the absence of explicit commentary, speculation and conjecture may proliferate, resulting in many narratives. Choosing between immediate action to combat falsehoods and remaining silent to prevent further legitimization of rumors is a challenging strategic issue. Evaluating that situation becomes much more challenging when the evident discord pertains to both personal allegiance and institutional accountability. The palace's communication strategies are grounded on historical effectiveness. Historically, royal families have used meticulously crafted statements, controlled image dissemination, orchestrated public engagements, and where necessary, the prompt production of sanctioned biographies or memoirs to shape public perception. When Queen Elizabeth II and other senior royals encountered issues with their narratives in the past, the household often used a measured approach that included specific rebuttals, emphasizing responsibility and continuity rather than immediate extensive disclosure. This approach indicates that the institution believes the monarchy's authority derives from the potency of ritual and the significance of consistency rather than from transparency in quotidian discourse. In the contemporary media landscape characterized by rapid news cycles and social media platforms that promote immediate reactions, the efficacy of a deliberate and systematic strategy remains uncertain. Leaks, remarks from former insiders, or the dissemination of unverified recordings and texts may impede meticulously orchestrated responses. If the accounts of this meeting are precise, the incident would expose a division not just in a marriage, but also in the distribution of authority within the monarchy and in the negotiation of identity between a king and his consort. This would highlight a crucial difficulty for the current monarchy: how to reconcile the personal needs of spouses with the public expectations placed upon them, particularly when both persons had distinct histories, reputations, and constituencies. The signet ring, whether really lost, stolen, or only referenced during a heated disagreement, functions as a pivotal symbol in the narrative, a little object whose contested nature underscores the magnitude of the underlying problem. Legal concerns arise as well, but in distinct ways according to the characteristics of monarchy. The thorough prosecution of a consort for the appropriation or retention of personal items belonging to the sovereign would be challenging because to issues of origin ownership and the distinctions between private and public royal possessions. Among the relics are the crown jewels, which are held in trust for the state. Others are personal artifacts, gifts, or relics that are owned by individuals. Determining whether an object is the personal property of a sovereign or belongs to an institutional collection may need forensic proof and legal clarification. The palace often tries to resolve property disputes within recognizing their complexity and the sensitivity that public litigation might evoke. The potential for illegal activities by senior royal family members would engender an unparalleled constitutional and reputational crisis, requiring first recourse to confidential internal mediation. The distinction between crown property and personal possessions is not only theoretical, it influences the resolution of disputes and the extent of inquiry openness. Crown property held in trust is subject to public administration and may be examined by Parliament or obligated to fulfill cultural heritage responsibilities. Conversely, personal possessions are governed by individual ownership and familial preferences. A ring that serves as a gift, a privately owned object, and a symbol used in public events may exist in a legally ambiguous context, complicating resolution efforts. This ambiguity often compels the family to seek negotiated resolutions that preserve their dignity while addressing the tangible loss. The relationship between the palace and the government is also affected. In a constitutional monarchy, the king adheres to the Council of Ministers and refrains from engaging in partisan politics. Nonetheless, ministers remain concerned about the stability of the head of state as an institution. Historically, amid crises threatening the monarchy's capacity to meet public obligations, whether due to scandal, illness, or abdication, prime ministers and senior ministers have sometimes offered private counsel to the sovereign. This dynamic arises from the executive's ability to maintain stability during periods of institutional stress. The administration is expected to exercise caution under the present circumstances. Public involvement may be seen as politicizing a familial matter. If the government remains uninvolved, the palace may lack external mechanisms to address issues that threaten the Constitution. A significant amount will depend on the palace's ability to independently address challenges and the sovereign's readiness to embrace tools that facilitate processes. If the palace seeks to address concerns without resorting to litigation, it may use several internal management strategies. This encompasses more defined written responsibilities for the consort and the sovereign established protocols for senior royals' interactions with the media, enhanced scheduling and approval procedures managed by the private secretary's office, and if required, personnel modifications to ensure improved operational efficiency. Consolidating or enhancing formal permission for interviews, public statements, and travel may clarify who has the authority to make certain decisions. To mitigate unilateral actions, frequent collaborative planning meetings, a more defined approval procedure, and a modest joint secretariat to manage overlapping responsibilities may be implemented. In the event of a breach of trust, engaging a neutral mediator mutually accepted by both parties and well-versed in the intricacies of royal life may serve as a discreet method to facilitate reconciliation. Mediators may be retired senior government officials, former diplomats, or other prominent individuals who facilitate the expression of grievances and explore collaborative solutions. The parties must be committed to adhering to the mediated solutions, and the process should remain confidential. Discreet psychological support and marriage therapy, when suitable, may alleviate personal frustrations that lead to public unrest. Nonetheless, all these measures require both parties to exhibit restraint and a mutual commitment to maintaining the institution's public equilibrium. Institutional reforms that exclude personal reconciliation may provide temporary relief, but they are unlikely to alter the underlying relational dynamics that perpetuate recurring conflicts. The palace's longevity is contingent upon the effective management and harmonious relations among its leaders. If unresolved or if public discourse persists excessively, the consequences may be both immediate and enduring. In the immediate future, highly visible disputes may lead to the cancellation or reduction of joint appearances, diminish the efficacy of the monarchy's charitable and diplomatic endeavors, and complicate relations with heads of state and other dignitaries who prioritize consistency and cohesion in the crown's representation. Successful state visits, investitures, patronage announcements, and ceremonial events need a certain amount of trust. In its absence, the apparatus of representation becomes more tenuous and necessitates last-minute alterations. Ultimately, such internal discord may undermine the symbolic authority that bestows the monarchy its soft power, both domestically and internationally. Perceptions suggest that the moral authority of the British Crown is diminished due to perceived divisions and the belief that its leaders do not adhere to the standards of loyalty and moderation anticipated by the people. Public opinion is not static. It develops over time via recurring impressions and reinforced narratives. A sequence of incidents indicating issues at the highest levels may over time affect public perception of the monarchy's legitimacy and significance. In addition to the institutional calculation, the human element must also be considered. When a couple's responsibilities extend beyond the personal to the constitutional, the marital issues of notable celebrities acquire a unique character. The demands of public life, constant scrutiny, extended working hours, separation from family and friends, and the burden of historical expectations exacerbate typical relationship issues. The notion that emotional wounds from previous public hostility persist illustrates the enduring impact of prolonged reputational recovery on mental well-being. Both spouses have the scars of public narratives constructed over decades. Their capacity to manage present challenges is profoundly shaped by that history. Accounts emphasizing gestures of possession, such as extracting a ring from a bag or asserting shared ownership of symbols, are not only theatrical embellishments. There are also endeavors to reinterpret personal experiences in a public context, since even little activities are seen via a societal lens. Comparative perspectives enhance comprehension. European constitutional monarchies have navigated alterations in the function of consorts in various manners. In some dynasties, consorts are designated specific public functions that augment the sovereign's duties. In others, the consort remains officially and functionally peripheral. A more active consort is advantageous because to their capacity for increased humanitarian efforts, broader diplomatic engagement, and the provision of a human presence that bolsters the sovereign. Appointing a consort to assume a prominent public position necessitates the establishment of explicit mechanisms to regulate authority, reduce duplication, and safeguard the sovereign's constitutional rights. Friction is probable when such mechanisms are absent or under scrutiny. The British experience in this instance illustrates the difficulty of integrating a modern dynamic consort into an institutional framework shaped by centuries of history and highly responsive to historical events. The current official legal and constitutional system is not exhibiting any observable actions. No public evidence exists of a formal investigation beyond the routine actions of palace staff in safeguarding royal assets and ensuring the efficient functioning of the household. However, the symbolic ramifications may outweigh any immediate procedural response. The monarchy depends on an equilibrium of private confidence and public display. A disruption, as described in these documents, even if subsequently resolved, prompts individuals to consider how to sustain that equilibrium moving forward. Ultimately, the narrative underscores that the modern monarchy is an institution reliant on an intricate web of personal connections, historical affection, ceremonial emblems, and public legitimacy. The alleged conflict, centered on trust ownership and freedom of expression, illustrates how tensions may escalate when these elements are misaligned. The tale of the missing ring and the ensuing exchange functions as a test of the crown's adaptability, irrespective of its status as a literal actuality, a partial truth, or an exaggerated account arising from court gossip. The institution's ability to withstand such crises will depend on the personal reconciliations of the involved people, the management responses of the royal household, and the degree to which the monarchy can restore cohesiveness without jeopardizing the essential confidentiality of its operations. The implications of this recalibration extend beyond domestic concerns. The crown serves as a symbol of national identity and a reference point in the diplomatic affairs of the UK and the Commonwealth. Concerns over instability within the monarchy may prompt constitutional inquiries in several domains, including Republican sentiments, demands for alterations in the monarchy's relationship with state institutions, and increased examination of the royal household's public financing and privileges. An isolated event is unlikely to prompt structural change, but a succession of unresolved disputes or repeated public scandals may progressively shift public attitudes, resulting in substantial effects over time. The palace remains enigmatic, with both the public and political arenas observing closely. The results present issues that extend beyond the characteristics of the present leaders. Their focus is on the system's capacity to endure in the future while reconciling change with stability, privacy with public accountability, and personal issues with societal concerns. The settlement or absence thereof of the disputes detailed in these reports will reflect King Charles III's capacity to maintain unity under pressure and to manage the Queen's escalating role in a manner that maintains institutional legitimacy. The missing ring now serves as a potent symbol, a little gold artifact that has become the focal point of significant issues like loyalty, power, and identity. The monarchy is at a pivotal juncture, with the people awaiting the next sign of resolution from the authorities. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.